Hey there, nonprofit friends. In this lesson, we're going to learn all about transactions. Transactions are the donations that make your organization's work possible. Your ability to track and manage this data is one of the most important things you'll do in Fundraise. In this lesson, you'll take a tour of transactions, create transactions, filter and save transaction lists, and manage an individual transaction. All right, let's get started with a quick tour of the Transactions section. To access this section, click Transactions in the side menu. You might be thinking, why didn't Fundraise call this section Donations? Well, in 99% of cases, these are your donations. But for organizations that sell tickets that aren't 100% tax deductible, Transactions is a more accurate name. Now, back to the tour. In the table, you can sort and page through a filtered list of transactions. By default, you will see your most recent transactions at top. Edit a transaction's details by clicking on the underlined amount and opening the transaction profile. And access the supporter connected to this transaction by clicking their underlined name. We'll cover the transaction profile soon. Look to the right of each item. Here, you can take actions based on the type of transaction: refunding the transaction, resending the transaction receipt email, printing the receipt, and more. At the top of the list is the filter container. Here, you can add filters, save a list, or export a list. Your saved lists can be accessed from the Lists link in the page header. Allocations are here in the header as well. Allocations enable you to assign transactions to particular funds or programs. We'll cover allocations in a separate lesson. Of course, you can also create new transactions anytime by clicking New Transaction. So, while we're here, let's talk about creating transactions. When a transaction occurs online through a giving form, the transaction record is automatically created with all the details and configurations set by the donor. But to create a record of your checks, cash, in-kind, or stock donations, you will need to manually create transactions. We call these offline transactions. Let's create an offline transaction together as an example. Click New Transaction. First, enter some basic information about this transaction, starting with the payment method. This time, we'll select check. Next, enter the amount and date. And optionally, add a check number, memo line, note, or transaction tags. Finally, in transaction details, you'll see a few more options. For example, you can specify that this transaction is pledged but not yet received. Once the pledge has been fulfilled, you can update the setting. This is a great way to track your major donors' pledges. You can also mark this transaction as anonymous, meaning the donor's name will not appear in any public donation feeds on a campaign site. Next, every transaction must be connected with a supporter. So here's where you click Add Supporter to search and select for the supporter making this donation. You'll also need to connect this transaction to a giving form to help keep things organized. Many organizations use a giving form assignment to link offline transactions to a specific fund or initiative. Once you've selected the giving form, you'll see the option to send or not send a donation receipt email to the supporter. This option is located here because donation receipt templates are unique per giving form. Those are the basics, but there are a few more optional things you can configure when creating a transaction. By default, if the supporter you've selected above is a member of a household, this transaction will be attributed to the household. You can remove or update the household attribution. You can add an allocation as well as a soft credit for this transaction. Finally, page goal. Let's say you need to add a check or cash transaction to the progress bar of a campaign site or a fundraiser's page. To do that, assign a page goal to the transaction. When you assign a page goal, the transaction will count towards your chosen page's goal and will be included in the progress bar and activity feeds. Once your transaction details are in place, just click Save. Next, let's learn about filtering and saving lists of transactions. There are lots of filters you can use to refine your transactions lists. Let's start by adding a filter for status. The status of a transaction is very important because your transactions lists will display complete, pending, and failed transactions. If you want to see the true amount raised, you've got to filter out failed or pending transactions. To do that, add a filter for status equals complete. Another common filter you'll use in transactions is the date filter. Specify a specific day or a relative date range, like last month. To filter for a static date range, add two filters. One where the date is after or equal to the beginning date, and the other where the date is before or equal to your ending date. It's not as complicated as it sounds, promise. Click Apply and your list will update. Now, we're looking at all the successful transactions after March 1st, 2020 and before August 31st, 2020. Once you have your desired filters, you might want to save this list for future access. To save a list, just give it a name and click Save List from the Actions menu. As a reminder, you can also export the list from here. Anyone on your team can access this saved list in the future by clicking Lists in the section header. Okay, in the final segment of this lesson, we're going to do a deep dive into the transaction profile. Each transaction is connected to many other objects in the platform, and there's a lot of data that each transaction contains. As you know, you can open a transaction profile by clicking on the underlined amount. The transaction profile has a few sections: General, which contains the editable options for this transaction, and Details, which contains a lot of extra information that'll be helpful to different members of your team. Let's get started with General. This should look familiar. Editing a transaction is very similar to creating an offline transaction. First, you'll see the transaction details, things like payment method, amount, and notes. Next is the supporter who made the transaction. Take note, once the transaction is created, the supporter cannot be edited. Next up, the giving form where the transaction occurred. Then there are the optional, configurable items that we described already: households, allocations, soft credit, and page goal. If there were any custom questions answered with this transaction, you'll also see those answers here. Next, let's take a look at the details available with transactions. There are a ton of details here, so we'll just cover a few. If you have a failed transaction and want to know why it failed, review the gateway response. In many cases, you'll see the transaction has failed because of an expired card or something related to the user's payment method. If you got a surprise $5,000 donation online and not sure where it came from, well, first, congratulations. Next, take a look at the UTM fields. They may clarify how the donor landed on your site. Of course, this assumes that your marketing team is using UTM parameters in marketing links. Finally, it's good to know that you can take a few additional actions from the transaction profile by clicking the Main Actions button in the profile header. Here, you can resend a donation receipt email, print the donation receipt, and refund the transaction. Please note that there are some limitations on refunding transactions from within Fundraise. You can consult our documentation articles to learn more. And that's it for now. As you now know, Fundraise's transaction management provides you with lots of detailed information and control over your donation data. See you in the next lesson.